Voila! Greetings viewers, and welcome back to the channel, and welcome to Sunday morning on the Sunshine Coast. It's a drizzly, dreary day. I was going to go out and do some vlogging, but the weather has again conspired, but that's okay. Frustration is the mother of invention, and we're going to get into some travel talk. So hey, come along with me on CoffeeChillTV. Okay, we are centered. So folks, today's philosophic is all about the worst types of travelers, tourists, travel companions. You know, the person you're stuck sitting next to for 9 hours on a flight. You go off traveling in a group and there's someone in there you think, I'm never traveling with her or him again. Maybe it's just a complete stranger that whilst you're on holidays, you had the displeasure of being within a short circle of space. We've all got war stories, guys. And today's video, I've got some of my own takes and experiences sliced and diced with some search activity and just informal research as someone who's traveled a lot. And you know, before I jump in, I'm no saint, okay? I'm sure there are some people over the years who've travelled with me and gone, you know, he's got some, we've all got our quirks and idiosyncrasies, guys, and I would suggest when you travel with someone, those idiosyncratic behaviours kind of magnify a bit, don't they? So this video, guys, not to be taken too seriously, you know, you're on holidays, but yeah, we've got some lists, some war stories, insights and experiences on the worst types of travellers, okay? And one final point, this vlog is kind of a sequel. I did a video earlier on the worst types of expats. See, these are folks that don't just go overseas for a short holiday, they stay an extended amount of time. Some of them never come back. Okay, so it's a little bit different, a little bit of an overlap, but by and large, this is kind of a new list. Yeah, we'll work our way through this rogues gallery of the worst types of tourists. Let's do it. So viewers, I jumped into AI. Well, I didn't mean to jump into AI, I just jumped into Google search and it gave me an AI overview as well as a list. So I'm going to read you the AI overview, then I'm going to read you the first list, and yeah, we'll just keep unpacking from there, guys. All right, here we go. Here's the AI overview. The worst types of travelers include constant complainers, in brackets, whingers, selfish passengers who hog overhead bins or recline into meals, and disrespectful tourists who ignore local culture, safety rules, or litter. Other disruptive types are the fafer, always late. We also call those people the diverer or the procrastinator, the tardy, the tardy tourist, party-focused travellers, and oblivious parents with unsafe children. That's the AI overview, guys. It's come from multiple sources as well. Alright folks, let's run the tape on the Google AI results, and I'm going to add some of my categories at the end as well. But first off the bat, according to Google AI, the whinger, the complainer, a person who ruins the atmosphere by complaining constantly. Okay, many of you would be familiar with the term Karen. to be a Karen, and Karen from Bunnings. And I've come across a couple of Karens in my time travelling, and I'll give you two little stories to kind of, bed down this idea of the whinging tourist. So my first experience with a Karen way back in the early 90s, I was in Tanzania, and I was there with a group of so-called backpackers, and we were organising a trip with a couple of young blokes out on their boat to sort of cruise around the water for the day, and it was most enjoyable. Just maybe a few metres down the pier, I saw a conversation. There was an older lady. She was British. She would have been, I reckon, in her mid-50s. She had the blonde bob haircut. So this was a Karen before I even knew the term Karen. And I remember her, just kind of dressing down these young guys. This is no way to run a business. And the guys were like just waiting for the boat to fill up before they went out on the water. Maybe it was 15, 20 minutes longer than this lady wanted to go, but what a whinger. Jeez, just relax. What's so important in your day? You're on holidays. Stop whinging. The boat will leave soon. Just leave it. Don't whinge all the time. Don't be a complaining tourist. Don't be a Karen. And folks, the next story, only last year, I was getting on a train in Nong Khai to travel to Udon Thani, and there was an older lady. I reckon she was in her mid-60s. She was there with her older daughter, getting on the economy class, 25 baht, train carriage. And I remember her complaining, going, "Well, no one's helping me." I'm thinking, sweetheart, it's a $1 fare. You've gone cattle class. You're not riding, some luxury train. It's not the Garn. It's not the blue train. She was complaining. I was like, listen, one of the issues with whinging travellers and tourists is the mode of transport, the level. Let's say you're trying to travel, cattle class, economy, but you've got first class tastes. Maybe you're not built for that type of travel. This lady wasn't. She shouldn't be travelling on a local train in Thailand expecting some kind of concierge butler service. So yeah, quite irritating, this lady. In the end, she settled down, and the train left. And I think one of the cleaners, it's not their job, one of the cleaners helped, So yeah, whinging tourists, we know. They're no fun to be around, are they? Okay, folks, according to my Google AI search activity, the next one is the FAFA, the FAFA. Always takes too long to get ready, causes delays and stress and, all kinds of other issues, particularly when you're traveling in a group. I'll tell you a story about a FAFA. So folks, my FAFA story is the story of Dithering Dean. I was in a group travelling Bangkok and Pattaya. That was the large group, and then a smaller group went on to Bali. This is about maybe 15 years ago now. But yeah, Dithering Dean, he was the guy where everybody was loaded up in the mini bus, ready to go to Chaka Chak Market, Bangkok, from our hotel. But Dithering Dean, he had to race back. He had to race back to his room to get something. And he did this several times. And his dithering, it didn't cause any major dramas, but let's just say it was irksome. What about you folks? You ever travel with someone who takes an eternity to get ready? Someone who always has to circle back to their room, forgot something, need to get that, disorganised, dithering. They can be a source of frustration. Let's be honest. All right, next one on the list, the party animal. And I'll read this for you. The party animal only travels to party, shows no respect for local culture, and is excessively loud. So folks, you got to fight for your right to party, but there are limitations, aren't they? And I suppose for me, it's often when you get a group of tourists who take over the place. They take over a bar, they take over a restaurant, they take over a street, and they're loud and obnoxious, and we all want to have a good time, but it shouldn't be at the expense of others, should it? So hey, I think I'm too old to be a party hard dude these days, but I'd like to think that even back in my younger days, I was always mindful of others and didn't want to cross that line where my loud, obnoxious partying was at the expense of the locals as well as fellow tourists. Okay, viewers, caffeine top up, Java hit, caffeine fix, and the next one on the list, the tightwad, the cheapskate, the penny pincher, the cheap Charlie, the person who engages in extreme frugality. Let's unpack that one. All right, folks. So in one of my earlier videos on the worst types of expats, I spoke about the cheap Charlie expat. That's a person who's been in a place for a long time and wants to rig the system, etc. But when we get to travellers and tourists, I remember I was in Malaysia in my backpacking days in the early 90s. I was travelling with a small group of backpackers. There was another small group of backpackers also at the bus terminal. We were looking at, getting on a bus that was going to go for maybe 5 or 6 hours, and we chose this air-conditioned bus that had, Hong Kong movies playing on it. It was cheap as chips. It was, only a few ringgit to get on that bus. We overheard a conversation. These other, far more roughy-toughy backpackers than us, and one of them in the group looked at us and said, "Oh, that's an aircon bus." As if travelling on an air-conditioned bus makes you a sellout. You're not really a backpacker. You're not a slow traveller. You're not an independent tourist if you sell out and go on an air-conditioned bus. Could you imagine what a nightmare that person would be like to travel with? Righty-ho, excuse the rain noise, but I love the sound of rain. Okay, I love a rainy night. Shout out to any Eddie Rabbit fans who are watching this video. The next on the list, the disrespectful tourist. Culture disregarders who are rude, loud, or ignorant of local etiquette. Check it out, folks. Good, strong, healthy rain. Good for the garden. So, disrespectful tourists. You don't have to go too far to find images, videos, reels, stories about disrespectful tourists. And you know, I suppose, you know, traveling in a place like Thailand's got, you know, some complex social structures, customs and etiquette. It's not that difficult to respect. If you're visiting a place of worship, you know, is it so hard to dress conservatively? You know, don't be that person who goes to a shrine in Indonesia in your bikini top and your Daisy Dukes. Don't do it. You know, don't be that guy who comes out of the water in Da Nang, Vietnam in board shorts only, and then, you know, gets upset when they say you can't just walk into the shrine, sir. You know, don't be an ignoramus. And you know, these folks, they don't do any preparation when they go. Okay, that's one thing, but when you are told, when you're asked, hey, come on, you know, this is a place of worship, don't be disrespectful. And folks, whilst we're talking about disrespectful travellers, what about disrespectful bloggers and vloggers? You know, they expect everyone to stop whilst they set up the perfect Instagram photo. You know, you'll see them in a 7-Eleven in Thailand with their big tripod, you know, talking about their ham and cheese toasty experience. Hey, I like a ham and cheese toasty, but your filming should not disrupt others. You know, so yeah, there's disrespect to local customs and etiquette. There's also disrespectful to fellow tourists. Alright, next on the list of the worst, the most irritating travellers, according to Google search, the oblivious parent. The oblivious parent allows children to engage in dangerous behaviour, such as playing with airport machinery. Well folks, it goes beyond that, but I've got a story directly related to that example. So folks, it was about 10 years ago, flying from Singapore to Brisbane. On the flight, there was a couple there with 2 children, and one of the children was just crying the whole time. Those parents had no strategy to manage the child. I remember the air stewardess came over to us because we were kind of adjacent. We were on the other side of the aisle, and she said, "Oh, we can move if you like." I said, "No." I said, "Some folks are just disrespectful." I said it loud enough for them to hear, but you know, it was probably a 7-hour flight. They were probably, the child was, you know, maybe only 1 or 2 hours for the whole flight. Did that kid shut up? I'm not a parent, but come on, you got to have some strategies. Yeah, you can't have a child just screaming and crying for 5 hours. It's not natural, and it's you know, it's kind of terrible for your fellow passengers as well as the airline staff. Awful. And folks, I kid you not, on the very same flight, when we arrived at BNE, Brisbane International Airport, another child, not the one that was screaming and crying for virtually the entire flight, but another child hit the emergency stop button at the baggage claim. What did that mean? Well, the whole thing had to stop. No one was allowed near the baggage claim. Had to get an engineer to restart the baggage claim. After you've been on a flight for 7 or 8 hours and you can see your bag but you're not allowed to pick it up because some kid played with the emergency stop button on the baggage claim. Come on, a parenting fail. Do better. If you're a parent watching this, you've got to do a little bit better in those situations, as I see it. So viewers, we've got a few more on the rogues gallery in terms of types of tourists, the worst types. But seeing as we were talking about airports and aviation, and I've done a fair bit of that, there's quite a few airports and aviation videos in the back catalogue of CoffeeChillTV. Excuse the cross promotion. In the Google search, they came up with a group of half a dozen worst flight behaviours. I'm going to read you the list and I'm going to zero in on just one. So, according to Google search, worst flight behaviours. First one, the overhead compartment hog. Takes up all space and forces others to put luggage far away. Followed by the inconsiderate recliner. Slams their seat back without checking, especially during meal service. The next one, the drunk rowdy passenger. Obnoxious, inebriated passengers who disrupt the flight. Followed by gate lice, line cutters, people who crowd the boarding gate before their group is called. And finally, the backpacker bandit, someone who hits other passengers with their backpack while boarding. All right, let me focus on just one of those. So I'm going to focus on the inconsiderate recliner. It was a couple of years ago now when I was flying from Bangkok to Sydney, and I was sitting next to an elderly couple, and in front of one of them was this lady who just kept pushing forward and pushing back her seat incessantly during the flight. And the meals were about to come out the second time because it was a long haul flight, and I ended up just peering through because I could see that these couple next to me, they didn't want the confrontation. I just leaned through and said, "Hey, can you leave your seat up for the food service?" And she was kind of taken back a bit, but she didn't recline. You know, the first time she did it, you know, the lady next to me, you know, the old tea and the water's bobbling, and she just did it without notice. And why would you recline in the middle of food service, you know? So, yeah, hey, but, you know, there's half a dozen there, guys. What about you? What's the worst type of in-flight behaviour that you've encountered? So, okay, guys, Google AI also came up with a subcategory. Worst types to travel with, friends or partners. Let's run down this list, guys, and I'll zero in on one again. Okay, folks, there are 4 types. People you don't want to travel with, or if you do, it needs to be managed. So here they are. The stress head. Constantly worried, anxious, and creating a tense atmosphere. The waverer. Incapable of making decisions, slowing down the itinerary. The princess. The prince. Demands excessive luxury and refuses to step outside their comfort zone. And the last one is the one I'm going to zero in on. The fussy eater. The fussy eater complicates dining experiences and refuses to try local food. Alright guys, the fussy eater. You know, you'll see them on flights, won't you? I remember on that Bangkok to Sydney flight, there was about half a dozen of these, you know, fussy eaters, and they were driving the air stewards crazy. You know, just a nightmare. And, you know, I saw one gentleman, he actually went out the back and he was like talking to them in the the trolley food preparation area, about his specifications for his chicken curry and rice, you know. And in terms of fellow travellers, I've got another story. Yeah, it was probably about 10 years ago now, but long weekend on the Gold Coast, and yeah, we had a fussy eater in our little trio, and breakfast was a nightmare. You know, we went to these places where they'd have about, 5 set breakfasts, but this guy would still find a way to reconstruct and deconstruct and add this and do that. I really felt sorry for the waitress, and it slowed everything down, and it was just kind of embarrassing, you can always push something to the side, guys, so yeah, for me, the fussy eater, a bit of a nightmare. But what about you guys on that last list? What about you? What's a difficult type of travel companion for you? So folks, here's some supplementary notes that I've taken myself before I did the Google search. This is from a couple of weeks ago, so I'm just gonna add some random types of tourists that no fun to be around. Let me go through the list. Okay, so earlier I spoke about the ostentatious blogger and vlogger. Sets up their tripod, sets up for the perfect shot, and no regard for anybody else. But there's also the surreptitious blogger and vlogger, the secretive social media, content creator. And these are the folks that got those meta glasses, little hidden lapel mics and cameras and secret recordings. They hide behind trees and pot plants and catch people in embarrassing situations. These are people who are trying to get folks in gotcha moments. So yeah, they're a bit painful too, in my opinion. Folks, in terms of tourists to avoid, the pathological liar, and they'll lie about places they've been, about knowledge they don't have. They'll always want to one-up you. They're a pain as well. And whilst we're circling back and talking about surreptitious versus ostentatious behaviour, there is the do-gooder traveller, the white knight saviour. I remember years ago I was at a night market in Udontani, and I remember this guy went out of his way to make sure everybody saw that he returned his plate and his knives and forks. Arise Sir Galahad. These people are at the other extreme and almost take it upon themselves to play mother hen and kindergarten creche supervisor. Those people, they're a nightmare as well at times. And look, let's talk about misogynist and misandrist travellers. Plenty of misogyny, men on holidays. They've watched one too many blogs and vlogs from the manosphere, and they kind of want to impose their male chauvinistic view of the world and sort of crystallise into the worst kinds of tourist behaviour. Same goes for the misandrist. These are the folks who will do the eye roll. These are your female chauvinist who rolls her eyes at certain behaviours from the opposite sex whilst on holidays. Just like the male chauvinist, a real pain to be around. So another type of tourist or traveller I like to avoid is the disingenuous digital nomad. We spoke before about how some people are kind of loud and rude and oblivious to the comfort of others. You know, the disingenuous digital nomad. I remember I was checking out of a hotel in Concan, and there was a guy that had his iPad and his phone going, and he was just talking absolute gibberish about moving money and assets and transferring this and that. And he was just a show pony, this guy, you know. Probably hasn't got 5 cents to his name. Maybe he does. But yeah, he struck me as one of those disingenuous digital nomad travellers. What a pain. And folks, the love fool tourist. This is the tourist that tells everybody about how they're they're off to meet the love of their life, and you know, they go overseas for a few weeks, come back, and you know, sometimes it's true love, but there's an old saying, there's no fool like an old fool. And another good cliche, a fool and his money are soon separated. So the folks who go on holidays and brag to the world about their romantic escapades, yeah, sometimes it's right, but sometimes it's kind of fool's gold, guys. Fool's gold. So folks, as we're looking at Mother Nature and hearing the effects of Mother Nature as the rain starts to slow down, yeah, look, another type of tourist that is a constant source of amusement for me is the tourist who tries to go native. I remember many years ago I was in Kenya at a backpacker place, and there was an American guy there, and he said to me, "Oh, would you like to come and visit my village?" Mate, it's not your village. You know, and of course in Southeast Asia you'll see a lot of folks with dreadlocks and tie-dye pants, and you know, they last night they got some food from a cart in the street and they feel like they're a legend in their own lunchtime. So yeah, they're going native, but they'll never be a native. It's a complete cosplay. It's a fantasy. Yeah, the going native fail tourist. Okay guys, so the next one for me is the travel snob. Now earlier in this video, almost like a reverse travel snob, you know, the backpacker who turned her nose up at me and my fellow travellers for daring to get on an air-conditioned bus. You know, we're kind of sellouts. But there's another form of travel snobbery that I'd like to talk to you about. Yeah, so folks, another type of travel snob that I come across lots, but another example, I remember many years ago I was on Great Keppel Island, and I was staying at the youth hostel, and I was chatting to a lady who was telling me about where she lived in the UK, and she said we would see these losers come into town on tour guided buses. Now she's staying in a youth hostel like me, you know, and she was, you know, insinuating that anyone who goes on a guided tour bus trip was somehow a loser, you know, that unless you're an independent traveller, you know. So it's a weird form of travel snobbery, isn't it? So yeah, I really don't have much time for these travel snobs who think they're automatically better than anyone else because of their class of travel, mode of travel. You know, it's yeah, Awful, isn't it? Okay, viewers, I think we're going to head down the home straight. Let me just run the tape on the opening list of the worst or the most irritating travellers according to Google. They were, again, the whinger, complainer, the faffer, the diverer. That was the first two, followed by the party animal. Next up, the tightwad, the cheapskate, followed by the disrespectful tourist, and last but not least, the oblivious parent. What did you think about that list, folks? And what did you think about some of my supplementary categorisations? What about that irritating flight behaviour? Do not be afraid to opine in the comments section. Voila. Thank you for making it to the end of this video log, this vlog, folks. As always, like, share, subscribe, comment if you wish to opine. Keep it positive, put it in the comments section. But either way, cheers for making it to the end of the video. And I hope to see you again soon on CoffeeChillTV. Please enjoy the balance of your day. Cheers.